Here we go, back again with another live stream, SAFC Sunday Bunch. And welcome to the live stream, Conrad. How are you feeling today, Conrad?
Yeah, good. Bit better than yesterday after the result. But yeah, much better today.
Having a few drinks yesterday, or did you not bother?
I don't drink, so no. I can't even drink. I just have to live with it.
All right, nice one. You have to, definitely. Hey, Jack Shields, welcome to the stream. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. I did have a few drinks last night, Terry. So was it?
How many is a few? How many is a few?
I don't know. Maybe more than 2 or 3. Put it like that way. But yeah, I think we all needed some kind of release after yesterday's performance, didn't we?
Yeah, I had a few sherbets. I had 4 pints and 3 cans, which is more than I would normally have. So I was a bit worse for wear in the middle of the night. Welcome back to the live stream, Michael. So Michael Bowers, how are you doing?
Right now I'm all right. Coming out of the ground, I've just literally got your thumbnail for the Luke 09 Out video, and you look like this. That was me coming out of the ground yesterday, so that felt quite appropriate. But I'm all right. How are you doing?
I'm feeling okay now after a long day. Actually, to be honest, I feel quite chilled at the moment. So, how do you feel, Michael? Did you have a few gin and tonics yesterday or not?
I'm the same as Conrad. I don't drink, so I watch it sober.
That's amazing.
Jack's definition of a few being 2 or 3, I think, would be quite exaggerated for many people after watching that. I think the definition of a few for many would be about half a dozen at least.
Well, much respect to both of you then. Each to their own. Right, so welcome to the live stream. DJ Earth, Sunderland AFC, good evening all. Harry Lamb says good evening. Minnie Brooke, Jimmy, Emma, Hanson, our moderator. I hope she's feeling better today. David, Joblin, Conrad Tank, and Ian Wilkinson. Right, so before we start with yesterday's abysmal performance from everybody, including the manager, we'll pop back to a few days to the Huddersfield game. I know Jack Shields and Michael Bowers both went down to the away game, and we'll start off with Michael. Michael, what was your thoughts on the game, and how was your journey down?
Journey down. Okay, I'll try and be as quick as possible. We were meant to get a train from Newcastle to Huddersfield. I think it was like 1:45. That got cancelled because, well, unfortunately, someone apparently got hit by a train between York and Doncaster. That's not the funny bit, obviously. Hopefully, that doesn't look a particularly good situation. But the funny bit starts when we got to York, because we got another train that was leaving in 2 minutes. When we asked one of the staff, how can we get down to Huddersfield? They said there's a train there that goes to London, which stops at York, but it's leaving in 2 minutes. So I legged it across Newcastle Central Station, got the train. Then we got to York, which took us just under an hour from Newcastle. We were meant to get a separate train that goes to Huddersfield about 3:20, and we waited there for about 20 minutes because somehow the train company didn't have a driver. So we had to stand there for about 20. So we had to sit on the train and wait for 20 minutes. The driver we were supposed to be having was stuck at Manchester Piccadilly for some reason. So we had to wait for a separate driver that wasn't supposed to be on duty to come and drive the train. So after that, when we got into Huddersfield, I said to my mate, we better win because of that. So that's the train journey down. So that was far more interesting than the first half, which, being blunt, was dreadful. We had 2 decent chances, what I can remember. Sirkin had a good chance, and I think Diaku had the other one in the first half. Other than that, we did absolutely nothing. And then it's a shame because I'm one of the few people that doesn't slate Diaku, but at the same time, I think I've got to admit he's probably not good enough, unfortunately. He ran his socks up, but just looks completely headless chicken, sadly. So when he came off and Sims came on, it gave us an outlet. And second half, I thought we controlled the game enough to deserve the win without being particularly great. But yeah, that obviously leads on to yesterday, but I'll let the others have their say first on Huddersfield.
Nice one. Conrad, how are you doing? And how did you did you enjoy the Huddersfield game? What was your thoughts with Sims coming on, with Pritchard being behind Sims? Pritchard played 90 minutes as well.
Yeah, it was enjoyable because we won. I thought it was one of those ones that all my mates have texted me about, saying, "Oh, good win." I don't think I really sort of appreciated it as much as them, just how sort of needed it was really until I looked at it afterwards, that that we really did need that win. Like Michael's just said, I don't even remember seeing anything in the first half. I think I was mainly looking at my phone just because nothing was happening. I don't know if anyone else watches it.
Was that because your commentary was behind the action?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was watching it on other methods, shall we say. And the commentary was about 30 seconds behind the actual game. So I think when I was trying to look up at incidents, they were in the middle of the pitch taking throw-ins. So it was difficult to watch. But I changed stream second half, and it was much better performance. Yes, Sims came on, and that was was glad to see him, but I was just glad to see a striker on the pitch, Terry. Really, that was the big difference. Just glad to see someone up front for a change.
Yeah, I just thought it was an awful first half. I thought Huddersfield were the better side, but the conditions were treacherous as well. So speaking of conditions, Jack, did you get soaked down there? Were you okay under cover?
No, I was okay. We were luckily just under cover enough. But you're right on the conditions, Terry. They were horrendous, And at one point, I thought it was going to rain that much. I thought if it keeps raining like this in the second half, the game might be into doubt a little bit because the ball did start to hold up a little bit. Thankfully, the conditions improved in the second half, as did our performance, because we were terrible in the first half. Huddersfield won every second ball, battled. They were more physical than us. And really, it was, bar from some poor finishing from them, bar that, we would have been 1-0 down. And I think a better team, better than Huddersfield, I think probably would have had a goal in, So we were looking to get to half time, but second half we were better. We controlled it, as Michael touched on, without really creating a lot of out and out chances. When we got the goal from Pritchard, I never really felt like after that we were not going to win the game, if that makes sense. I felt like we had a control. We kept them at arm's length. I mean, obviously the second just killed it in the final minute, and they were probably our two best moves of the game, particularly the first one. I mean, you're looking a few weeks back, we played Reading and we scored a really good team goal, and that was another one really. If you look at that from goalkeeper all the way through to the finish from Pritchard, it was a really good move, and I was pleased for Pritchard because he was getting a little bit of stick from the Huddersfield fans, booing his every touch. So it's nice for him to give a little bit back when he scored. I don't mind that. I think if you're I think if you get some stick off the fans when you score, I think you have to take it as a supporter. So thankfully, it just wasn't one of the ex-Sunderland players, because it's normally happens to us, doesn't it? So it's nice that the boot was on the other foot, so to speak. But I thought we were much better. Like Tony Mowbray said afterwards, the first half was as bad as we've been, and we probably were. But it was all about the result, and it was a very, very much needed 3 points.
Who was your man of the match on the night there, Jack?
I thought Luke O'Nien did very, very well. I thought he won every 50-50 and battled and was strong. Pritchard did well, considering the treatment he was getting from the Huddersfield fans, and obviously popped up with a goal. I thought Sims made a difference when he come on. We've already touched on Giarca, who was awful. And Sims, I wouldn't have took much to be better than him, but Sims, played his part. So, I'll probably give it O'Nien. I thought I've been critical on this channel before, but I thought he was really, really good.
Back on the live chat, we have Brian says, "Hey boys, missed you. Looking forward to hearing your opinions on the club we love." And Casey Cameron Jude's on says, "Woohoo, Michael. Conrad Tango 9 has a sound game against Huddersfield. Hey, Wilkinson, you were very restrained when commentating on yesterday's game, Michael. Michael's on yesterday's game, Michael. Very impressed. Wish I could have been the VV worried about how things are panning out. Lots of issues to be addressed." And okay, DJ Earth also says Mowbray is just Parky Park 2. Parky Park 2. Right, if you're enjoying the live stream at this moment in time, please give us a thumbs up, because you're not doing anything else but watching our faces. Right, there we go. So, Michael. Evans and Embleton started for the Huddersfield game. And first half was shocking. It was awful. Then they were replaced by Neil and Barr. What was your opinion on Evans and Embleton?
Well, okay. I think Evans was, in the first half, nobody was good. I think, when did Evans come off? When did they both get substituted? Well, I'm assuming they both got subbed. I know Evans did, but I can't remember if Neil got
taken. Yeah, they both went off, and Neil and Barr both came on at the same night, replaced the midfield. And I thought Neil and Barr played quite well, actually, together. But that obviously is playing against a more tired Huddersfield time at the time.
Yeah. I think Evans a couple of times gave the ball away, and in that sense was poor. I think other times he just calmed things down and on occasions. But again, I've seen him play a lot better than that, put it that way. And as for Embleton, I like Embleton, but I'm not convinced that he's good enough to start. Not yet, anyway. I think when he starts games, I think he drifts out of the game a bit and goes a bit anonymous, personally. And whereas when he comes off the bench against tired legs, I think he's actually very effective. And obviously, as you said, when Neil and Barr came on, when it's up against a more tired Huddersfield Town side, when it's later on in the game, I think that does tend to suit them. So to answer your question, Evans bang average, but again, nobody was great in the first half, and I think Embleton personally is an impact sub.
And if you had your choice, who's your favourite two from midfield, would you say? The partnership?
Right now, I'd say Evans and Neil. personally.
Right. Yeah. Conrad, yourself, what was your thoughts on Evans and Embleton as a combination? And Embleton, what's Embleton's best position for you?
I always thought Embleton was better. It was sort of in the Pritchard role. That was until we got Pritchard, though. It was one of them that I always thought he was the one that a bit of creativity when he was at Blackpool. That was what I seem to remember him playing in, feeding into the strikers or sort of in and around the sort of 18, 20 yards, trying to sort of find pockets of space and balls through. But we got Pritchard, and then it was kind of like, well, we can see Pritchard's quality over Embleton more often. Embleton does seem to pop up with more goals, I'll say, though, even when he doesn't play necessarily as many minutes as Pritchard. But I don't know, mate. I'm still with Michael that I'd rather see Evans and Neil. I just think Neil is very good, but he's prone to a mistake, as I know we're skipping ahead a bit here, but in the Cardiff game first half where he tried to just spin on the ball and just got taken off him straight away and they were through 2-on-1. It's just little things like that where I think if Evans was next to him, you just give him a sort of, don't be doing silly crap like that here. Like, you know, you're the last man. You can't be sort of messing about on the ball on the halfway line with two running through. You just need to sort of pass. You just be sensible with it and move on. Stop trying to be too clever.
Right, thank you. Back to the live stream. Peter Harvey, evening guys, manager to blame. There's no easy team in the Championship. 2 words for Sunderland in yesterday's game. Utter rubbish. Unpredictable Sunderland. Alan Gardner says, evening chaps. Emma says, Embo should be kept as an impact player. Dave Mack, we are Sunderland. What are Sunderland missing? A charismatic manager who hasn't got the personality of a prawn. Leoroni says, it makes no sense with Pritchard and Evans not starting. Surely it can't be fitness, especially with 3 to 4 week break coming up. Glyn Jones, Neil's first touch is awful. Make a thoughts on Valentine Roberge coming back as player coach in January. Well, let people answer that if they want. But Jack, Matete, do you not think Matete deserves a start in the middle with Evans? And who's your favourite 2 partnership?
Yeah, I mean, Matete, I think when he's done all right when he's come on. I know, he doesn't have the consensus among Sunderland supporters that he's not quite up to playing at this level. And I must admit, I think he's done okay. I mean, he hasn't set the world alight when he's had his opportunities, but I don't think he's done badly enough to completely disregard him as an option. Do you know what I mean? Particularly when, we as we're going to come on to, we didn't have that much through the middle yesterday. So I think, he maybe should look to that as well, because I think as well in our team, in the middle of midfield, we don't have somebody, in my opinion, who can put the foot in, and put tackles in, and work. I think we're missing, particularly if Evans doesn't play, we've got, players that are technically good on the ball, but we haven't got anybody that when the opposition's on top to get amongst them, do you know what I mean? To really put a few tackles in it and work hard. So I think Matete offers you that option. My preferred 2, though, would be, as the lads have already touched on, it would be Dan Neil and Corey Evans together, because I think they complement each other pretty well. Because in Dan Neil, you've got someone who's always looking up for the ball, but he's good technically, good at recycling possession and moving the ball forward. And Corey Evans is experienced older head, a little bit more defensively minded, protect the back ball a little bit. So I think when they work well, when Sunderland play well, it's that when they're working well together. So that would be my preferred 2. I think he just maybe got it wrong yesterday, because I know they got taken off after an hour. I think Corey Evans got took off after an hour against Huddersfield, but I think it wasn't him playing badly. I think it was just the case of maybe a change in shape or a change in personnel would work for us at that time. So I'm not sure why he didn't persist with him yesterday and why he changed it.
Michael?
Yeah, to build on what Jack just said about Matete, I think I'm someone that with Matete, I like the look of him a lot. I think obviously I know a lot of people, well, some Sunderland fans don't seem to rate him as much, but for me, I think if Matete is not going to, how can I word this? Matete, I think, has got enough attributes to be good enough for us in the future. But for me, for that to come to fruition, he needs to go out on loan in January for me. I think he needs to go. If we're not going to use him, I don't know what you like. What do you guys think? I would personally try and loan him out to, well, maybe back to Fleetwood. I'm sure Cod's Vlogs would love that. But going back to a higher end League One club or someone that's just going to constantly play him and maybe get him to sort of like just toughen up a bit physically. I don't know what you think, but I would loan him out in January personally.
Thanks, well, Michael. Back on the channel, we're only 89. Dan Neil has done that a handful of times this season. even close to our box. Did it again yesterday. Sheffield United as well for the first 10 minutes. Dan Neil has to improve. Like Michael Dixon, Evans is the most important midfielder we've got. Can't beat an old head in the middle to calm things down. Young lads are learning on the job and will get caught time after time. I'd give Matete and Evans a try. If Neil got dropped, he looks decent when he came on. Laroni, A. Wilkinson commented before the game on Terry's vlog, Neil and Barr will be too weak. Guess what? Post-match, Terry said they were weak as piss. Was confirmed after 30 minutes, but nothing done about it. Glyn Jones worrying that Mowbray cannot see the problems in the first half and make no changes at half-time. Alan Gardner dropping Pritchard makes no sense as he plays much better with a target man. And before we go on DJ Sizzler Watson, I want to go on to that subject. So yesterday, when the team was announced, for me, it stands out a million miles. Mowbray has no clue what his favourite partnership is in midfield, and he's struggling to get a good midfield. He thinks that's where the problems are. That's why he's chopping and changing. And it's easy to be blindsided because when Neil and Barr came on against Huddersfield, they looked much better. So maybe he thought he'd give it a go. I could understand that. What I couldn't understand was dropping Pritchard, because for me, Pritchard has been not as good without no strikers up top. Now, Pritchard's a better player with some focal point up top to pass the ball to find a pass to. So I couldn't believe it when Pritchard was dropped yesterday and Sims started for the first time. So for weeks and weeks and weeks, we've got a striker where what Pritchard wants, but then he drops Pritchard. Conrad, what was your thoughts on the team news yesterday? And were you surprised he dropped Evans and Pritchard at the same time?
Yeah, those were the two where I was sort of sitting before the game going, okay, you take Pritchard out the team and you're playing a striker, exactly what you said. Like, because I'm sure it was only a few weeks ago, there was sort of, I wouldn't say like a lot of complaints, but there was murmurings that Pritchard doesn't do anything for us. He's so inconsistent. He can't do this kind of... But everyone was like, yeah, but he hasn't got anyone to pass to. He's trying to find, passes to people who try and play like him or play, right on the wide. He wants to find, Stewart and Sims up top. So then, like we just said, when you get one of them back on, you think, great, right, you've got one. Now, can you get the ball to him? All right, you're not playing. Right, okay, great. So, right, we're back with the other two there. And then in the midfield, like you said, again, going, okay, this team, I'm sure they finished in the playoffs, I want to say last year, or they were up and about it, Cardiff, I believe. I'm not 100%. And you're a bit like, you need sometimes that solidity in your midfield of Evans. And yeah, okay, he played 60 minutes the other night, and we've played a lot of games in October, but I'm sure he could have held on for 60 minutes again in the first half, sort of set the tempo of the game before, and then changing it to Barr coming on, or Neil or Matete, whichever way round they'd done it. It just made no sense to me, and it sort of set us off on a sort of a bad start right from the beginning, and it didn't sort of get, and like I think many people have commented, it didn't get any better at halftime. We were lucky to be 0-0. We needed to make a couple of changes, and we didn't. We just went, it'll be all right, and it wasn't.
We were that bad yesterday. We were absolutely shocking. Now, why does the manager not change it? Is it because he doesn't want to sort of admit he got it wrong in the first place? Is that stubbornness, Conrad?
It could be, because, I mean, it's like we said, he doesn't know his best midfield too. And maybe he thinks they bring something different to the game each time. But, I mean, it's difficult to manage the players, I guess. But at some point, you might have to just sit there and just go, look, Evans is the best one, and he's the best one at this. Until I can find someone else out of you lot that can manage the game as best as he can, or knows when to move or how to direct his partner next to him or the midfield, just to sort of settle us in. It was a bit like, it's not quite the same level of comparison. But do you remember when we bought in Zenden in like 2011? He wasn't there to start every game. He was there just to calm us down and just be like, right, we've gone 1-0 down, that's fine. Just keep the ball, right? Keep that play, do this, do that, get a bit of shape in us. He wasn't there to set the world on fire for us, which Evans isn't either. But that experience is what we were lacking yesterday right from the start, as well as the quality of Pritchard to Sims.
Right, thank you. Back on the chat, Ian Curry says, where's Dino and Jack Dodds? Well, Dino works night shift, really busy, and I have no clue where Jack Dodds. Who's Jack Dodds? I forget who he is now. Right, and also DJ Sizzler Watson, a blind man could see we needed to change it at half time. Folding your arms is not good enough. Michael, yesterday's team performance, yesterday's obviously the team he's picked, and why doesn't he change it at half time?
For me, the reason Mowbray didn't change at half-time, because I think it's just a simple one. He wanted to see if the lads would improve in the first 10 minutes of the second half. Now, based on the first half, that looked very, very unlikely to happen, because for the first... I think the last 30 minutes, we had the ball and we were starting to control possession, but we weren't really... I mean, we had a couple of decent chances, but on the whole, we were... It was kind of everything we were doing in the last 30 minutes was in front of Cardiff. Sideways, pass it backwards, sideways, back to the centre half, back the full back. And to be fair, Cardiff, for first 60 minutes, easily the better side, without doubt. I think there was obviously debate about whether their goal was offside, but it was deserved. In the first half, we were at half-time, we were very, very fortunate to be at 0-0. They should have been at least 1 or 2-0 up. We obviously had a penalty saved, which I think CONRAD said to us before we came on there, or one of you said it, that should have been the thing that kicks us up the backside and actually gets us going and actually gets us to start performing. Evidently didn't happen. And Cardiff, I think, bullied us all afternoon. I think this is probably... And that's probably where, to come on to the team selection, that's probably where I felt... Well, I'll put it this way. When I saw the team, I was surprised that Barr was starting. And I've liked Barr a lot since he's come off the bench. But I think Evans, in this type of game where it's going to be physical... I think even though Evans obviously isn't tall or he isn't bullish as much, but I feel like his presence would calm things down and would get us to combat Cardiff's physicality and get us playing the way we can do. So Neil and Barr, I get it. When they came off the bench at Huddersfield, they worked fine. But coming off the bench when you're 1-0 up is a different scenario when you're at home and needing to try and chase the game and try and, the onus was on us to go on the ascendancy and push Cardiff backwards. And Cardiff, to be fair, exploited that really well. They just basically bullied us. They were physical. They pinned us in. They pinned us back. And we just couldn't get a rhythm going whatsoever. So, yeah, I've gone on a waffle again. But I think with Evans, I would have started. It's easy to say in hindsight, but I said at the time I would have started Evans personally. And, yeah, I mean, as per the performance, I mean, I'm sure the others will talk on about it. But, I mean, sum it up, first 60 minutes I thought was dreadful. Easily. Across 90 minutes, that was our worst home performance of the season by a mile. Because Burnley, at least we had a good first half. Last week, we pretty much had, 30 minutes where we looked okay-ish against Cardiff, but we didn't, again, like Huddersfield, we didn't really do all that much. I think DGF just put it in the chat, and it is something that I'm not concerned about yet, but it is something that's I'm starting to notice. We've only won twice at home this season. Our home form has got to be better.
Thank you very much. CONRAD, do you want to be in?
It was just to sort of add to the point on what Mike was saying. When we had our best spell in the game yesterday, which is right, we did, but that spell is when we brought on Evans and Pritchard.
Yeah.
And Evans sort of stopped them sort of just getting through our midfield just every time they came with the ball. We put Pritchard on and we thought, great, where's Sims? Oh, you've taken him off. Right. So the one time we actually wanted you to find the striker. And we were looking balls in the box, but for Clark and Roberts and Diallo, like, they're not going to win the headers against them. They've been heading stuff away all day. Like, the one time you actually thought, right, Sims could be in the game now. You've got your man on to try and find him. And you took off the one man that we were looking for to be on the end of these balls,
Well, for me, their best player was number 23. I forget his name, but in defence, but he won every header. But then again, if you've got Clark and Roberts to head against, you're going to win every header. Anyway, back on the live chat, Ian Curry says, send Diaco and Matete on loan. Pritchard is instrumental to us. Jimmy, I didn't see our midfield. Rubbish always, looks empty there. Glyn Jones, Borough. Fan called him the Tinker Man, which ultimately was his downfall. That's not a good sign. Ian Wilkinson, Mowbray commented during the week at the stadium dinner, Pritchard doesn't do what he is asked to do. Adam French, sorry to me, Sims is too slow. A bag of cement moves faster. Telly, Corey Evans should have started. CONRAD Tank, a physical experience midfielder, a midfielder needed in the transfer window, along with another right fullback and a striker for depth. So, Jack, yesterday's team, when you saw the team, how did your heart feel? And then, obviously, at half-time, when you didn't make a change, it was the same as Burnley. They scored almost in the second half straight away. So why didn't he just change it?
Yeah, I was very, very surprised, given how poor we were in the first 45 minutes, that there wasn't any changes. Whether or not he said, well, look, I'm going to give you 15 minutes, use the ones that have been so poor. You've been so poor in the first half. I'll give you 15 minutes to try and rectify the situation. But it backfired because Cardiff scored straight away, 49th, 50th minute. As you touched on, pretty much exactly the same kind of time, 4 or 5 minutes after half-time, that Burnley got back into the game at the last in the last home game. And it's a bit of a worry, really, that we're not other teams, you know, seem to be coming out, particularly at the Stadium of Light, and that's twice in a row now that teams have come out in the second half and they've been sharper and been, you know, first to the ball. You know, I mean, it wasn't so bad against Burnley because we'd had a 2-goal cushion, but when we were so poor, I was staggered that there wasn't any changes at half time. I mean, whether or not he, like you say, whether or not he doesn't know his best team, as has been touched on, but it was crying out for Corey Evans to come on and just, you know, get things going again in the middle, stop Cardiff having so much of the ball, firstly, and stop them playing it through the middle. Do you know what I mean? And I think that was a massive error on Tony Mowbray's behalf that he didn't recognise that. I mean, it's compounded by the fact that the score so early as well. But yeah, it was, you know, I can't believe he didn't change it.
Thank you very much. Back on the chat, Peter Harvey, I would prefer Matete and Bar. We need a playmaker, Diaco, to go on loan to South Shields. Kevin Phillips to be our new manager. If we get the playoffs, I will get drunk. John T, is Mowbray under some pressure from above to keep playing the youngsters? And then we go down to a nice £5 donation from Dawn Staveley. Says, how's it going? Thank you, Dawn, very much appreciated. Thank you for the £5 donation. Jimmy 09 will be rested, lol, because he's suspended. Right, so yesterday, penalty. Conrad, was it a penalty, yes or no? And what was your thoughts on Patterson's save?
Yes, it was a penalty, only because it's not like the actual contact itself I thought was anything like he scythed him down viciously or anything. He stopped him from tapping the ball into the empty net. It's denying a goal-scoring opportunity, and I thought the yellow card was harsh on him. I'm like, all right, you've got a penalty. No need to card him. It's not like he's just turned around and whacked him one or anything like that to sort of go. But yes, to me, it was a penalty on a good few views of it there. And I seem to sort of like, again, this is me saying this now, I kind of got this feeling that I was like, he's going to save this. I just have this feeling he's going to get it. And then jumped up off the settee that he did. And that, I think, Michael, we were on about it before, like you said, that was the moment where it was like, right, lads, you've had your scare, wake up. This is the moment you need to sort of go, right, get a hold of this game. And they didn't. They sort of limped out to half-time. And then we wanted the change from the manager, like we've all mentioned, and that didn't come either. And it compounded our mistakes that just kept going and going.
See, I've watched it 2 or 3 times back, and I think it's a complete accident because Bart has his back to the striker, and the striker, they both seem to collide together at the same time. So according to Conrad, if it's an accident inside the box, it's a penalty. Is that right? Are the rules of the law? Laws of the rules, or whatever? I
mean, imagine if you were running through on goal, right, and I was chasing down and I slipped over, and in slipping over, I knock you over. It's a penalty, isn't it? I fouled you. Even if I didn't.
What I'm trying to say is that I thought he ran into Bart at the same time as Bart ran into him.
Maybe on that one, but it depends if I'm guessing the ref probably thought, yeah, he's going for the ball, and Bart has stopped him. Like maybe not on purpose. Maybe, like you say, maybe it was that. Like his path, what's the word? Like his direction has taken him into Danny Bart when he's just turned innocuously and just sort of done it, but he stopped him from tapping the ball into the empty net, hasn't he? And that's all the ref cared about in that moment.
Jack, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I thought it was a penalty, Terry. I think when we play out from the back like we do, we are going to get caught, unfortunately, from time to time. It's happened a few times already this season, hasn't it? I think it happened at Sheffield United when Dan Neil got a red. I think it happened at Burnley a few weeks ago when we were playing around at the back. So we are going to get caught from time to time. Whether or not it was who was to blame? I mean, you could blame the pass. Why is he passing into him in that position? You know what I mean? I'm all for playing in the right areas, but sometimes you have to smell the danger. And I thought the idea to pass it towards him was a strange one. Do you know what I mean? Because he had his back to goal, as Conrad. Sorry, he had his back to the play, so it might have been accidental. But I thought we put ourselves in that dangerous position. I think the fact he didn't get a red indicates to me that the ref probably thought he was going for the ball. So maybe that's what maybe saved him. Like you say, if he'd been skied down, you know what I mean? If he'd been, without any attempt to play the ball, it probably would have been a red. But the fact he maybe went for it maybe saved him from a red and the penalty. But great save by Patterson, you know what I mean? Because I didn't think it was a bad penalty. I thought sometimes when a keeper saves a penalty, you think, oh, well, he saved it, but it was a terrible penalty. Do you know what I mean? But I thought the lad hit it pretty well. It was a really, really good save. He got a good, strong hand on it. So, we just expected that to be the let-off, as we said, and it unfortunately it wasn't.
I say I've watched it back a few times, and is it a blind pass from Bailey Wright? He turns and passes it. Now, for me, the striker wasn't going to get there. I thought Patterson would have that covered. I thought he would have gotten the ball before the striker got there. And for me, with Danny Bard, he turns and he's running, looking at Bailey Wright, and his back hits the striker at the same time as the striker is turning and he's running into Bard. So for me, I thought it was really harsh, but a fantastic save from Patterson. Like Jack says, that was a brilliant save. Michael, what was your take on it?
First of all, thanks, Adam Brent. He's just said, glad my internet's fixed. It's made his day. He mustn't have had a very good day if that's made it. But thanks all the same, pal. As for the penalty, I'm actually agreeing with you, Terry. I've just watched it back while you were talking. I was watching the incident about half a dozen times. And I agree. I don't think that, I think it was Ojo, I might be wrong on that for Cardiff, but whoever it was, I think the way the pass is going, Patterson's already got probably about like half a yard on him, and I think Patterson was going to get to the ball and clear it first. So for me, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just clueless and I don't know the rules, but for me, that was not. I can see why he's given it, but I would say that I'm right at the other side of the stadium. So for me, obviously, I didn't have the best angle at first to see if it was a penalty or not. From what I've watched, I think it's a soft penalty, but maybe I'm saying that if it was the other way around, we'd be screaming for it. So I can see why the referee gave it.
Yeah, I see the referee only has one look at it, as we've had a few looks, and he was looking at Bailey Wright, and Bailey Wright passes the ball across, and by the time he looks across, he sees a collision in the penalty box, and in his eyes, he just instantly thinks it's a penalty. So I can understand why he's given it. Back on the live chat, like I say, Joseph Billensey, welcome. With Sunderland, they end up with one game, then end up winning one game and losing one game. Sunderland need to get the ideas booked up. We have Jimmy, Adam French. I still believe Mowbray is the right manager for the season, and hopefully we'll sign players in January. Hopefully we do. We got Jimmy Stoko. I see the BBC got our gate wrong again, saying we had 27,000 instead of the correct of 37,000. It happens every week because the BBC are absolutely useless and they don't give a shit about Sunderland. And also on the chat, we do have anybody down here. Alan Robinson agrees with DJ Earth, whatever DJ Earth said. Minnybrook 1 had no creativity. DJ Earth, Tony Mowbray is not the answer to see Sunderland through to the next phase. At a push, it will keep us in this division. And then Conrad Tank says, I still believe in Mowbray, but the squad isn't balanced correctly and too many similar young and small skilled midfielders. So we're going onto the goal itself. Now, the goal came through a bad pass, I think, from Bar. I think it was Bar in midfield who gave the ball away sloppily. And I thought yesterday there was a lot of sloppy passing in the first 60 minutes. I thought we give the ball away too cheaply. As soon as we got the ball, we give the ball away. So, Jack, was it offside or was it just a good goal?
No, I must admit, I thought it was offside, but when I've looked at it back, I think he was on. So it's one of those that you shout for it, but no, I think he was on. I thought it was just a bit opportunistic, though. It was a decent finish from the lad, you know what I mean? Because I don't think that was the intention when the ball comes in, but I think he's reacted to it well and sort of turned it towards the goal. But I think just in general, you mentioned the possession, Terry, and I think the possession's been poor the last couple of games. It wasn't great at Huddersfield, and I sort of put that down to the conditions. I thought, well, first half, it was bad conditions. We did improve slightly in the second half. But our passing was really, really sloppy yesterday. But I think you've also got to give credit to Cardiff, because I think Cardiff pressed us really well. They were aggressive. A lot of teams are physical with us, and the kind of they're aggressive and they win the second balls. We don't have the most physical team in the league. In fact, I would say we're probably one of the weakest teams in the league in terms of physicality. So that means that in terms of actually getting possession, other teams seem to be better than we are at actually winning the ball. We don't have many players that, in my opinion, we don't have many players that can put the foot in and win the ball enough. That means that, like yesterday, we just couldn't get possession. And when we did get it, because they were pressing us so hard, we were giving it away constantly as well, which made it even worse. So we didn't have any control at all in the first half. And yeah, it was the poorest I've seen our passing for a while the last couple of games.
Jack, do you think Tony Mowbray panics under pressure? I mean, he looks like he's dull as dishwater when he's interviews, but do you think he panics under pressure? And can he see us through to the rest of the season safely?
I don't know about panicking under pressure. I think he's still finding his feet with the team, which is a little bit of a worry because he's had I don't know how many games he's had now, but he's had 10, 12 games. So the fact he doesn't seem to know which way to go to the midfield is a little bit of a concern. I think he is what he is. He's a mid-table, bottom half championship manager. And I think, it wasn't the most inspiring appointment, was it? Let's be honest, when we appointed him, nobody was kind of jumping for joy when the news was announced that Tony Mowbray was appointed. I think it was just it was just a steady pair. It was seen as a steady, safe pair of hands, wasn't he? Because we just lost Alex Neil. Window was shut. Well, he'll get us through to the next stage and possibly keep us up, maybe get us to mid-table, But I think long-term, Tony Mowbray's not going to be the man to take you out of the league. But I think for what we are at the minute, I think he'll do just enough. He'll do just enough and hopefully keep our heads above water. I know doing it just enough isn't great sometimes because you have to have ambition, and I get that. But ultimately, our main concern this season is to stay in the league, and I think he's good enough to do that.
When you say Michael, get out of the league, Jack, do you mean go down to League One or the Premier League? Because Sunderland are quite good the other way around.
No, I was talking about gaining promotion long term, but I think we're still work in progress, aren't we? Let's be honest. I think what hasn't helped, the fact we had a decent start, I think it's raised people's expectations, and suddenly people are like, feel good factors back, and we're gonna be in the playoffs. And I think really, even with the strikers firing, I don't think we're quite a playoffs team yet. So I think it's a reality check, that we are where we are at the moment.
Is that true then, Michael? Have Sunderland fans getting carried away from the beginning of the season? And is Tony Mowbray, you'll know this as well, did Tony Mowbray take Blackburn down to League One before he got them promoted? And is that just a safe pair of hands? Is that all he is?
He was there when they got relegated, but at that point, it was very late in the season, I think, or it was about halfway through the season. So obviously, he would have had enough games to keep them up. The rot apparently had set in at that point. But he obviously took them straight back up, and I think his finishes, he took them back up 5 years ago. The year we got relegated to the League One, funnily enough, and then the 4 years since, I think he got Blackburn something like 10th, and I think it was like 11th, 15th, 11th, and then 8th. So he finished like 2 places off the playoffs last season. Although apparently with him, Blackburn apparently start well and then fade away as the season goes on. But that's just based on what I've heard from Blackburn fans. I think for me, ultimately, there wouldn't have been a change if Alex Neil wasn't greedy and wanting more money. But with Tony, I can't ever forgive Alex Neil for that. But anyway, with Tony Mowbray, I agree. I think whoever it was that said, I think it was DJF said, I think he's good enough for what the club probably want right now, which is a steady pair of hands. And I think realistically, at the start of the season, I said, despite our good start, the aim for me this year is to consolidate. And people will think that's low standards, but I disagree. I think I view that as very realistic. We've just come up from League One after 4 seasons. We've got teams that have got parachute money. I think Sunderland, put it this way, I saw this stint in the Championship. Well, hopefully we don't go down, because I said we wouldn't go down last time and that aged well. But I think I viewed this process as a 5-year plan to get the Premier League. Having watched the division, I would reduce that to 3 years. I think we could do it in 2 or 3 seasons. However, I don't think Tony Mowbray. I think Tony Mowbray's good enough for what we want right now, what the club wants. I mean, not the fans. I think he's good enough to keep us steady right now. But I agree with Jack. When you want to go to the Premier League, and because eventually, so that will be the expectation at Sunderland, and I think the club can't get away from that. The club itself, as arrogant as it sounds, belongs in the Premier League. We don't deserve to be there right now, but deserve and belong for me have always been 2 very separate things. The club as an infrastructure needs to be in the Premier League. So I don't think Tony Mowbray is good enough to take us to that point, but I think he's good enough now for this season to make sure that we keep our heads above water and make sure that we don't get relegated.
Thank you, Michael. Back on the chat, if you're enjoying the live stream, please give us a thumbs up. We try and get 100 likes by the end of the live stream. We've got 109 on the live stream, so it's a possibility. It's a possibility. Ian Wilkinson says, how many teams have you seen in the Championship we have played are much better than us? We should be able to stay up, no problem whatsoever. Then we got also, Wilkinson says that Mowbray is just not, he's not a man motivator. Or he is a man motivator. Is he a man motivator? I always think he's boring as that when I listen to him talk. At the moment, we are light years away from the promotion, says DJ Earth. Sizzler Watson, I've seen more life in a pound shop battery than Mowbray. There we go. Jimmy Stoko, Mowbray's press conferences are so boring. No one turns up. It's the same lass all the time. And the room is empty. Right? I never get these interviews after the game. I mean, they ask the most bizarre, boring, straightforward questions. Why didn't he ask, why did you drop Patterson? Why did you do this? And it's just like talking shite in these interviews half the time. Anyway, Conrad, Mowbray done his dishwater? Or is he going to get us? Is he going to be safe for Mowbray? Is he safe pair of hands? Or could he motivate you playing a game of football?
I don't know. Probably anyone could motivate me to play a game of football. It'd be all right with that. In answer to your first one, though, why people don't ask the difficult questions is because they won't get an invite back. Is why no one likes to be pressured to look bad. Do you know what I mean? Unless he's actually going to have an answer ready for us. But yeah, it's sort of like a bit like Jack sort of said. Like no one jumped for joy when they went, "Get in, we're getting Tony Mowbray." Now that Alex Neil's gone, that's exactly what we wanted. And I don't know. It just reminds me of like going around to your granddad's house where you didn't really want to go, but you've got to go there anyway and listen to his stories because he doesn't have a telly, and he's just boring, isn't he? But like that he knows things, and like he sort of like he can do a job, but you're sitting there going, all right, mate, like yeah, right, great, come on, like just trying to get a bit of motivation on and that. But he might be a man motivator because I mean he came in on the first one and we battered Rotherham, which I don't think we'd even done when we were in the Championship a couple of times with them. Michael will probably know more than me because I'm not sort of keeping up with the results.
Is this against Rotherham you're talking about?
Yeah, we didn't beat them that much in League One, did we?
No, I don't think we beat them at all in the League One stint. The last time I remember, I think we beat Rotherham was a pre-season friendly. That was it.
Yeah, so I mean, he sort of took over the club already, and like they might have been on a new manager bounce. Do you know what I mean? And we've got that one. And then he had a few games where it was like, you've lost your best striker, you've lost your second striker, right? Okay, then we sort of got a good result against Watford with no players, and then we beat. We've done all right, but yeah, he's just he might be really good at talking to them, but the other hand, he might not be because look at what happened on Saturday. He had a word with them 15 minutes and nothing changed.
Right, I do apologise, Ian Wilkinson. In the same dinner, Mowbray also said he is not a coach. He is a man motivator. Very worrying. Jack, so if he's not a coach, what is he, Jack? What is he?
I don't know. I think there's a couple of reasons he was probably brought in. One was because he was available. Let's be honest, because we weren't going to buy a manager's contract out, were we? We were looking for
he lives nearby.
We were looking for an easy available available option, and he was there. I think he has worked with our guys behind the scenes, hasn't he? Hasn't he worked with our sporting director or director of football before?
Yeah, he has, and he's worked within this structure as well.
Yeah, so that was another reason. And I think one of the things I was hoping for was because I spoke to a lot of Blackburn fans when he got the job, and they said he was really good at bringing through young players and developing young players and getting the best out of young players. We have got a young squad, so I was looking forward to that. Jury is still very much out in terms of whether or not he has improved the young players because. Yes, in certain games we do look like he's getting the most out, and then in other games that he doesn't. Like yesterday, hardly anybody came out with any credit. Really, did they? No Sunderland player you could say played well yesterday. So I think it's just as Conrad says, he's fairly boring when you listen to him. He has got the experience. His positions, as Michael's touched on with Blackburn, are sort of mid-table, aren't they? Sort of anywhere from 8th to 16th, which is probably where we are as a club at the moment. I know it's not exciting, and it's not what our fans want. Our fans want somebody that's going to be playing, really good football and aiming to be towards the top 6. But I think we have to recognise that, size of the club doesn't count for much at the minute because it's our first season back at this level, and teams are more developed than we are. So I think we're just going to have to try and hope for the best of them.
Conrad?
It was just when you mentioned there that like he, the 8th, the 16th, the mid-table thing. I was actually just trying to think back. When was the last time in any season in memory where we've actually been mid-table anything? Like I was even just trying to go back, even like 10 years, 15 years, and I'm like, no, fighting relegation. Oh, promoted. All right, okay, fighting relegation, relegated, promotion. Like we've never just had a season where nothing's happened. Like, and we've just literally been bored and just gone, all right, well, we're 12th, that's fine. Not involved in anything whatsoever. Because there was a little bit of that with Alex Neil where it was like, we're just going along all right, do you know what I mean? And then that happened, you're just like, look, Sunderland, can you just have a season off where you don't do anything? Just nothing happens. Like, I don't want the drama, do you know what I mean?
Michael?
We've had enough of that documented on Netflix. I think that's proof enough. We've had enough drama. Yeah, I think with Tony, there's a couple of comments in the chat that I agree with. The main ones from, first one, Mickey Stewart says, highlights, you can't blame the manager. He sends the team out to do a job. I think yesterday it was a collective responsibility. I think a mixture of Tony Mowbray not changing things at half-time and not bringing the likes of Evans on to try and combat Cardiff's press and Cardiff's physicality. But at the same time, I think we can't let the players off either, because at the end of the day, they've also got to go out and do a job, regardless whether they've got to be motivated or not. They've still got to go out and have professional pride in themselves. The second thing in the main comment I was going to agree with is Ian Curry says, let's see when we have a full team, lads, before slating the manager. Completely agree with that. I think Tony Mowbray's done all right when you consider the context that he's had no strikers for 2 months, nearly 2 months. We barely, let's look at it this way. He came in when not many people were jumping for joy, and I was, and I thought it was an underwhelming appointment. Beat Rotherham. That's the only game he's had. That's the only game where he's had both strikers available. If you want to compare him to Alex Neil, and I've seen quite a few people online doing this and starting to get on my nerves, actually. For me, Alex Neil had both Ross Stewart and Ellis Sims at least available, if not playing, for every single league game that he was there. Granted, it was 5 league games, but you get my point. After Rotherham, Mowbray lost Sims at Middlesbrough. Sorry, lost Stewart at Middlesbrough, then lost Sims the next game at Reading. So, for me, when you look at it, we beat Reading, we beat Wigan, we drew with Watford. Granted, Preston and Blackpool home draws aren't exactly inspiring. But, I mean, you look at it, we played very well first half against Burnley. I think there's deficiencies with Mowbray, and there's things that I think tactically sometimes he could be a little bit better, but I think that's probably because we've been used to Alex Neil and what he was like in the 6 months that he was here. And again, I reiterate, this change wouldn't. Alex Neil leaving because he didn't have to go; he chose to leave. That's the reason the change happened. So, for me, I don't know. I think if Mowbray had Ross Stewart and Ellis Sims throughout the whole run since he's been here, and the results were exactly the same, then I would get the criticism. I would get the criticism a bit more. But the fact is, he hasn't had them. He hasn't, and I know I'm contradicting myself here, because I've always been an advocate of just because you don't have a striker doesn't mean the rest of the boys. Doesn't mean the rest of the lads on the pitch can't do a job. That's I've always tried to advocate that, but it does make an impact. I mean, I know Ian said sending the boys out to do a man's game, manager's fault. To an extent, I disagree. I still think there's enough experience that we've had across the couple of months on the pitch to make sure that doesn't happen. And in other games, we've managed games quite well. So for me, it can't just be a recent thing for me. But at the same time, I do think Mowbray has areas that I would like to see him improve on tactically, as demonstrated at half-time yesterday.
Yeah, I was going to leave the last word to Ian Curry as well, because you've got Ballard out, you've got Stewart out, you've got Alessi out, you've got Gooch out. So there's plenty of players out, and I probably missed a few already. Huggins is probably due back at some point, played a couple of youngster games. Right, Jack, who was yesterday probably I don't really want to single out worst players on the pitch. I thought Barr looked nervous in front of a big crowd for the first time starting out. But who was your man of the match, Jack?
It's a bit of a tough one, because, like I've just said, I don't think anybody really came out of it with any real, any real positives. I think the only one you might be able to give it to was Patterson for the penalty save. Do you know what I mean? He kept us in it, because I think if that penalty goes in, I think Cardiff probably get another one towards the end of the half, and then it might even have got even worse. You know what I mean? Because it's hindsight, because we might have got better in the second half if we'd gone 1-0 down or 2-0 down before half time. But that could have turned into a real hammering, given how well Cardiff played and how poorly we were. That could have been a really heavy defeat. So he kept us in it. I'll probably give it to Patterson on that one, because he was the only one that did something positive, and it was safe a penalty. Other than that, I can't really think of anybody to come out of it with anything more than about a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, it doesn't say much for the lads when the likes of Evans and Pritchard get a higher score on the ratings than the rest of the team who played the full 90 minutes. CONRAD, man of the match yesterday? And was the defence that bad though, CONRAD?
No, it's a weird one. I think I have to give it to Patterson, because apart from their goal, I don't really remember them threatening that much, and that could have been the defence as well. But every cross they were putting in the box, he was coming out and claiming. Every sort of half chance, he was sort of either tipping it. I don't remember him tipping many round, but he was just getting hold of the ball just quite easily, and just sort of, even then you could see he was saying to his defenders at one point, when the Dan Neil one where he'd given the ball away and they sort of stopped the 2-on-1, you could see he was straight up being like, calm down, what he's doing, trying to organise him. So I have to give it to Patterson, but maybe we weren't so bad in defence, because, well, like I said, they only got one. So does that imply that Cardiff actually played that well up top? Yes, they were easily running through our midfield, but apart from that, do you remember them absolutely smashing chances against Patterson and him making save after save after save? Because I don't. I know you didn't want to mention like bad players, and it's not that he's bad, but I think I've mentioned before, I seem to remember speaking to Jack about it. that Sims can't play up front on his own. Like, I think it was the same against Middlesbrough. Granted, he had to do it very much at the last minute. And even the start against Reading, he just can't lead the line on his own, can he? And then I don't know if that's because our wingers or our supporting players are that close to him. Do you know what I mean? To try and like knock a ball on or just slip a ball through to him there. But I don't really recall him bullying any of their centre-backs yesterday, even just giving away, like, you know, when strikers give away pointless free kicks when they just sort of lean into a defender to try and do a hit. He didn't even do that. But, you know, just can't play it front on his own to me.
On the live chat, again, if you're enjoying the live chat, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new to the channel. We have Trots Ernst agreed. Peter, I believe Mowbray is temporary for 2 or 3 years. Davy Jones, you'll be fine with Mowbray. I rate him a lot. He needs backing by the board. Good manager for me. Fulwell 007, too much inexperience in midfield. Bar playing too far forward. Fulwell says Roberts was man of the match. I think that's what it means. Right, man of the match for Emma Hansen. Jimmy agrees with JS. Peter Solkeed, do you think Mowbray will make it to the end of the season? Well, you know, hopefully he will. And then other man of the match, Ian Wilkinson says Patterson 0-9 always puts a shift in, says Tilly. And Ian Curry, can Emma and Dino apologise about comments on Gooch first? Vlog of the season, please. I can't remember them comments. Brian or Ian Curry on there. And also Telly says we need a 50 to 55 points to be safe this season.
I agree with that.
Michael, what was your thoughts on Sims yesterday and who was your man of the match?
Man of the match, probably Patterson, because I don't remember anyone in outfield playing particularly well, or at least not to the standards that we have set, that the players have set themselves. Which in some ways, I suppose, the fact that we're hammering the performance is probably in a weird way a compliment, because the players have set standards that high that we criticise and notice when they're not at it, which I suppose is a good thing. What was the question? Sims.
Sims, yeah.
I don't personally agree with the whole he's lazy, he's not trying, and all that blah 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 blah. Because again, yesterday he's not fully match fit. I think that, and I can't be bothered if anyone says that's an excuse, because for me it's fact. He's just literally come back from being injured for God knows.
I'm happy to be wrong. Don't get me. I'm happy to be wrong, but the 2 games that I've only got to measure it on, I just don't. I don't say he's lazy. Absolutely not. I just
no, that's not you, Conrad. I've seen a number of people go on about that Sims is lazy. When if you actually look, if you want to look at Sims when he's been fully fit, look at his early games when he was here. Like
the
when
Bristol
he was
City
fully
ones, they were too
Bristol
good.
City, QPR terrorised both defences, was all over them. And obviously there's other games where there has been games where he's not been great, but I just think, for me, I don't know. For me personally, you saying that he's lazy for me is a lazy narrative. Funnily enough, I think it's an easy thing to come out and say. I don't know. I think if he plays like this when Ross Stewart's back alongside him, then you could maybe argue that he's lazy.
He played
for
better
me,
with Stewart. I think Stewart plays off Sims, if that makes sense. So then I think Sims draws defenders out, because when was the last time we ever had 2 strikers on? But I mean, it seemed to be the reason Stewart was getting most of the goals, especially when Alex Neil at Stoke and Mowbray at Rotherham Rotherham. Sims seemed to be taken off that pressure, because he was like, right, Pritchard's finding me the ball. Not both defenders are on me. I've got a bit more space. And Stewart had chance to peel off of his man and go. Whereas Stewart, when we've seen him last season and at the start of the season, you sort of went, you can play up front on your own. I've seen you do it. You do bully centre-backs and you give a bit back to them, it's all I ask Sims to do. Do you know what I mean?
No, Sims can definitely play better for me. I just think he wasn't great yesterday, but I think he made it. Granted, it's not much about it's a low bar, but he made a difference at Huddersfield when he came on, and I think
he did. Yeah, I'll give him that. He didn't change it. Yeah,
I mean, granted, that's probably because he's replacing Diaku, and let's not go there. But I think I think I like Sims. I think he has got something to offer. I just want to see when Ross Stewart comes back. I think the best time to judge will be after the World Cup break, because by that point, I'd like to think Stewart would be involved, if not starting. But I might be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll hold my hands up.
We're going to go to Jack now, but Jack, before you answer, Sims, Tony Mowbray said he wouldn't start a game before the World Cup only a few days ago. So why does he start Sims?
I think it's because he's desperate. I think well documented the fact that we're struggling for a striker. And I think Michael's hit the nail on the head. To me, he doesn't look 100%. It looks like he's almost being rushed back to me. And I think I'm not disagreeing with what Conrad says. I think his style. We're going to compare him to Ross Stewart ultimately, aren't we? And Ross Stewart is so good at chasing defenders down. He puts himself about. He's almost 3 players in one for us, isn't he, Ross Stewart? Really, I've said it before. He's your goal scorer. He's your pressing striker from the front, and he's your hold-up man, and that's how good he is. He almost plays all 3 roles, all in the one team. So we're ultimately going to compare him to that. And I don't think Ellis.
Just
Sims
to interrupt, we've watched Ross Stewart consistently, by the way, for 18 months as well. Yeah, so that's a factor.
I don't think Ellis Sims is that type of player, but I think, to me, Michael's right. He doesn't look 100%, and I think he's almost a bit worried for his toe. You know what I mean? His foot. It's like he doesn't want to get stuck in. He doesn't want to press. He doesn't want to, put all of his weight on it almost. I thought there was a couple of times yesterday it looked like he was sort of not running with a limp, but you know what I mean? It wasn't his natural running stride to me. I thought he was kind of, it looked like he was not hesitant, but you know what I mean? You could just tell. And I just hope that's not going to be a feature now that the rest of the season he's going to be worried in case it goes again. Do you know what I mean? And he's not going to, I hope I'm wrong, but...
So really, that was a bad managerial decision from Tony Mowbray. Maybe you should have had Ahmad up top and Pritchard behind Ahmad, rather than risking Sims and brought Sims in after 60 minutes or something,
Could it have been, what's the word, like sly tactics to sort of say to the press, yeah, Sims definitely not playing, definitely not. So the team all study up on our sort of free-flowing 5 attacking midfielders that we've got, and then all of a sudden they've got a big striker up front, and you're like, geez, we haven't planned for this, lads, because it worked. I was going to swear, it worked a treat, lads.
Just as well it didn't plan for it, because, it doesn't make no difference, does it?
It didn't make a difference. Exactly. Didn't challenge anyone.
So, quickly moving on to Birmingham, Jack. Move on to Birmingham. We haven't got 09 in defence. What system do you play? Who replaces 09?
It's a bit of a funny one, isn't it? I think he likes the system that we're playing at the minute, so I don't think there'll be a change in system. Do you know what I mean? I think they'll probably just maybe move somebody into that full-back position. Who do you go with, though? That's the thing. Do you know what I mean? Who do you move across? Do you maybe
play Trey Hume?
Possibly, yeah. Do you just go like for like and put Hume there? Do you know what I mean? Or do you put Shirkin in? Do you swatch Shirkin up the right and go Hume? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? But I don't think he'll change the system. I think it'll just be simply taking him out and putting somebody in to cover his role, because I think at the minute. I don't think you can blame the system for the way that we played. You know what I mean? I think it was more individual poor performances yesterday.
And do you keep with Sims up top and just bring Pritchard and Evans back?
I think you have to. I think Mowbray's not got many options, and just hope Sims is a better version of himself on Friday night compared to what he was like yesterday.
Michael, your thoughts on Friday night?
I wouldn't start Sims. And I said at the start of the game yesterday that I wouldn't start Sims for that very reason, because I think what worked at granted the performance again first half at Huddersfield wasn't good. But the reason, I think a big reason we won that game was because we had Sims to come off the bench and actually be able to just keep the ball and relieve pressure when Huddersfield were trying to go forward. So, and for me especially, and we've been better away from home. So I think in some senses, I probably wouldn't have Sims start on Friday night, because I think at least then you've got a good option to come on the pitch. It's funny because Birmingham's it's a funny game really, because Birmingham have beaten a couple of the teams at St Andrews that are near the top. I think they beat QPR the other week, and my memory might be hazy here, but they've either beaten or drawn against Watford at St Andrews as well. Their home record I don't think is that bad. I might be wrong. I should have been Stato on this and looked it up, to be honest. But one thing I would say that I think, and this might be completely ridiculous, it might not benefit us at all. One thing that I'm clinging on to for Friday night is the fact that Birmingham played yesterday, just like we did. Birmingham play Swansea on Tuesday night when we don't play, and then they play us 3 days later. So by the time Birmingham plays Sunderland, they play 3 games in the space of a week. I know a lot of people don't like that. I know if Phil was here, he'd be probably throwing his he'd be throwing his toys out the pram suggesting this, but I think 3 games in 6 days will take an effect on the team if it's the similar players that are playing every game. And I would like to think then Sunderland absolutely have no excuse to not be much fresher, because we've had a 6-day gap between the games, whereas Birmingham will have, what is it, like play 3 games in 6 days. But as far as the system goes, I mean, I agree with Jack on right back. I think Trey Hume, I think on the wholes looked all right when apart from maybe the second half against Burnley, but that's not down to exclusively him. I think that he's looked okay on the whole when I've watched him. So I think, you need to get him into the habit of playing, or again, like with Matete, get him out on loan in January. So I would get Trey Hume in at right back, and then maybe have Diallo up top, and then, like say, Clark, Pritchard, and Roberts behind him as a 43-1, and obviously have Evans with Dan Neil in there as well. I think we need to get, like Conrad said, I think we need to get Pritchard and Evans back in the team. We need to get a good bit of experience because Birmingham will be aggressive because they tend to be doing all right at home.
Who would you start in, Conrad?
I'd probably not start Sims. I'd bring him on later on because it was a bit like I sort of alluded to earlier on. Our game plan, if we had one on Saturday, we played Sims, but it seemed to revolve around us trying to play neat little passes in and around the box and sort of get through. And then when we took Sims off, we were lumping balls into the box. So if that's the sort of, when we get to a bit desperate later on in the game, if we start lumping things in the area, that's when I want him on. That's when I would want Sims playing. We were all right against Huddersfield. Scored in the second half. Scored, the second best goal of the season out of all teams. Only second to our own goal against Reading, of course. And then when he came on, he, like you said, he held the ball well. He was sort of, played quite well. That's how I'd bring him on. Because the last thing we want then is him to come on 10 minutes in, something goes pop again, and we go, great. Now we're worried if he's going to be back in December when when we're starting up games again and stuff like that there. So, because again, we still haven't got a time, like an update, on Stewart. They haven't gone, he'll definitely be back by this date, or he'll definitely be doing this. I keep seeing, and I don't know which players on, they keep going, oh, he's on grass today. And I'm like, well, great. Like, what does that mean? Like, he could have just not walked on the path to the training ground for all I know. And they're like, oh, he's on grass. He's done all right today, You've seen the physio, has he? Has he just walked past him in the corridor? Like, what do you mean? Like, can someone give me some detail on it?
Right, back on the live chat, a casual observer says Smoggy is tactically inept, absolutely no plan B, without a doubt. Every game he's reactive instead of proactive, and nearly always after it's too late. And then the last comment of the day, and I do apologise, I haven't read any comments out because it's been really busy on the chat tonight. Peter Harvey says, we need 3 points. We play better away from home. Keep positive. Stay healthy to all Sunderland supporters. Well, thank you, everybody, for being on the channel tonight. Conrad, want to say goodbye?
I'll do the Jacob. Keep the faith.
Keep the faith. Jack?
Aye. Hopefully get some points down at Birmingham, but I'll see you all later, lads and lasses.
And Michael, thank you again for being back on the stream. Thank you to all of you, but Michael, I haven't seen you for a while, so it's great to chat to you again. You want to say goodbye to everybody?
Thanks very much, everybody. Nice to be back on.
Hopefully, next time on Sunday Bunch, we'll have 3 points in the bag and we'll all be happy looking forward to the World Cup. Good night, God bless, and may God go with you.
SAFC have teamed up with our sponsors, OneFootball. This is a superb football app.